Okay, welcome everybody. We're live with Underground Game QA podcast about. Oh, sorry, I did my jinx. Of course, there has to be a fail. I forgot to mute myself on stream, so I started hearing myself. So it's a podcast about quality assurance in the video game industry. My name is Marcin, and I will be your host for today. And my pronouns are he/him. We have three fellow game dev professionals joining us today, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hey, hi guys, I'm Paula. I'm from the Polish Gamedev Workers Union. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm here to assure the quality of the entire industry.
Hi everybody, my name is Heather. My pronouns are she, they, kind of loose about it. It's whatever. And I am here on behalf of the Game Workers Alliance, actually, Albany, as a part of Activision Blizzard King.
Hi, my name is Autumn Mitchell, she, he, they pronouns. I come from the ZeniMax Workers United union, and we're just trying to build a new industry.
Trying our best.
Damnedest. Hell yeah.
And with that, obviously talking about unions, we have to have a disclaimer. All individuals appearing on the podcast are not doing so as official representatives of their respective companies, employers, clients, customers, or any other third parties. And the opinions expressed here are their own. Nothing in this podcast is intended to be tax, legal, financial, or employment advice. This production is presented for information and entertainment purposes only. For professional advice, seek out a professional. And today, we want to do an intro episode on game dev unions. For the past few years, the industry has been in a very bad spot. So we see a rise of unions across all different companies all around the world. So everyone knows what unions are, right? Well, while the concept is not new and everybody has a general idea, but when asked for details, the community and other people, details get a little bit fuzzy. So we decided that it's about time we started cleaning things up. And what better month to start, if not May, that has Labor Day across the world. So to kick us off, we want to discuss how your respective unions happened. So tell us a little bit the history, how it came to be, and we want to know about your union. So who wants to kick us off?
The game of chicken. Who goes first?
Okay, I'll go. Since we're pretty new on the scene. So the Polish Gamedev Workers Union is very special in the sense that it's in Poland, obviously, and we are by now an intercompany union. We have members from 4 companies officially. We got started in CD Projekt last year, kind of in September. After what else? After layoffs. Layoffs happened, people got concerned. Some of my colleagues got together and were like, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? What can we do about it? And that's how the union got started. And from there on, we spread our tentacles across the entire Polish industry. Because while we're officially in 4 companies, we have members from like all over the Polish industry, and there are plans, children. There's plans.
I'll go next. So, the Game Workers Alliance actually originated. There's one other branch of specifically Game Workers Alliance, which started off in, I want to shout out Raven Software, and they're honestly, the fact that they broke through the dam first. It happened after, if you all remember, in 2021, the allegations against Blizzard, and kind of how it also touches on Activision as well, given the close, the nature of the companies. There was allegations of harassment and bro culture and stuff, and there were a lot. Just the mood after that was so grim and fed up and upset that people were like there were workers that were finally sick of it enough to say, what can we do? And I mean, there was walkouts. There was even Raven had gone on, I believe, a strike. I have to ask them why their wildcat strike was, but I believe it did have to do with their effort to unionize. They broke through first, created the Game Workers Alliance. Our union, I'm specifically part of a union that's in a subset of Blizzard, in Blizzard Albany. I'm in upstate New York. And yeah, we followed suit after them because when they broke through, we were like, if they can do it, so can we. So we formed a union of about 15 people of QA in our company, and yeah, so far we've achieved some pretty cool things, including helped in getting our one of our colleagues who is disabled the ability to have a stipend to pay for an aide to get him to the office so that he can work in the office because he wants to. And we've just recently received promotions for about half the unit with back pay, and that's actually pretty new. And there's other things that we're currently fighting for, but that's just a little smattering, a taste.
Nice. Bragging. Good.
Yeah, very nice. I had a feeling, I kind of wanted to let the two of you go first because I had a feeling that really we would just all be aligned on the why we did this, right? There's all kinds of reasons why. To be honest, I think if you ask anybody who's in a union right now in game dev, they'll tell you that this was sort of the writing on the wall, that this probably should have happened a long time ago. It's a little late. So our reasons and ZeniMax QA for organizing were very similar, especially aligning with Heather's story. I think we knew unionization was the answer. People continuously are, open door policy, come to talk to managers and tell us how you feel. And the thing is as individuals, you continuously go to your leaders and you say, hey, this is really screwed up. Like, this is making us not happy. Morale is really low. Like, this is too much crunch. The wages are too low. The bonuses are bad. Whatever it is, I think people realized going to management individually just was not solving anything.
Yeah, it's like, thanks for the info.
Right, yeah. Noted. Thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. That's it. That's as far as the conversation goes. So we started having conversations with ourselves. And the conversation ended up being like, you know what? I know that a union is not a perfect tool or an ideal tool. The ideal tool would be law that makes it so that, we're not stuck in this position. But we said, screw it, let's do this thing. And then not long after that conversation, we saw Raven QA break through the dam for QA. And not the first game union, the first was Bodeo, rest in peace. But still, for QA, that was huge, especially being in such a giant of a company. Seeing just really a handful of testers take that on and to be successful was so empowering, especially for us, because we're a really big unit. There's about 375 of us. So to see, what was it at the time? I think 14 people successfully do that was just
20 something, yeah,
small, much smaller in comparison. We were like, wow,
yeah.
If we can do it, we can do it. So, so we did. We certified our union in January of 2023 after a lot of hard work, even with a union neutral company, which maybe we'll get into that later. It's still a lot of hard work, right? You're still talking to coworkers and still making sure people are on board and they feel the same way that you feel about what your union vision is. And anyways, yeah, we're in bargaining right now. I'm on an elected member of my bargaining committee for my union, negotiating with Microsoft and with ZeniMax, and we've gotten some pretty significant wins. We're definitely addressing things that have been a longstanding issue for the QA department as it is, but also issues that we weren't necessarily even were like the most pressing things immediately for us, like AI. So we secured language over AI that ensures that AI is to be used as a tool, including automation. AI and automation is to be used as a tool, not to harm workers. And for the people who create and deploy these tools, they can be held accountable for damage that is done to workers. So that's massive, right? It's really strong language. We're pretty pumped about it. And I think Heather and their crew actually somehow strengthened the language, which is great, right? This is part of why we do what we do. Unions talking to each other, we can talk to each other and brainstorm about even stronger languages. Are really exciting. But some of the other stuff that we've won, 77 of our contractors actually unionized, and we were able to negotiate with Microsoft to just fold them into our bargaining unit. So we went from being, 300 people to 370 something people. And those contractors immediately got to negotiate for better wages, holiday pay, and just things they've never had, including copies of Starfield, which they were working on at the time. You would think just the basics. Right?
Minimum, right?
Right, yeah. And then another thing, some of our dev QA, who are the embedded QA that work on our Bethesda Game Studios projects, they had missed out on a wage adjustment that the rest of the department had gotten, which was, I think it somewhere ranged between like 14% and like 18%, depending on who you were. So we were able to negotiate for them a 15% pay increase and a year of retroactive pay. So, and we're still negotiating. There's still more to come. So, yeah, it's the power of unionization and not just going to management. Good luck securing all that by just talking to your manager. It's just not going to happen.
I guess I have to brag a bit as well. So the 4 companies we're in is CD Projekt Red, Flying Wild Hog, who are under Embracer and are loving it, I'm sure, 11-bit, and Product Madness. And I'll have to say, it's tough going. I mean, in only one of those we're like fully and completely recognized. In the others, we're at the various levels of either still hashing out the relationship or going into an actual fight to get our right and privileges recognized. I can't get into details, as you know, it's all pretty sensitive stuff. But, that doesn't stop us. We're working mostly with employees on individual cases. Somebody comes up to us and has like, well, I have a problem, this and this. I'm not being paid, or my pay is delayed, or I think they're going to fire me because of unfair feedback. And that sort of situations, which is where we intervene. We either give advice or we take steps and talk directly to leads or other bosses and try and get things solved. And I have to tell you that the atmosphere changes like immediately when the union gets involved compared to when it's just one person. What you said, Autumn, it's just completely different vibe. And a lot of the companies are scared of us. I mean, the labor code in Poland is pretty strong. The union has a lot of privilege. The companies have a lot of responsibilities towards the union. There is no option to union bust whatsoever. It's completely illegal to discourage anybody from joining a union. So everybody is, very cautious about what they say to whom and when. And I think that's a good thing. I think people should treat us with respect and should treat the laws and the rights of the workers with respect.
Workers' rights, human rights.
Exactly.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just for the sake of clarity, so your Atom and Heather unions are primarily QA, right? And then Paula, the Polish Gamedev Union is more than QA, right?
Yes, it's all kinds of people. I will say that the QAs are the loudest voice, probably. All 3 of the representatives for CD Projekt are various flavors of QA. Although in other companies it's different. There's like designers and programmers who are stepping up as representatives. Designers are also a pretty strong voice, and artists who are having their own set of issues around the use of AI and those sorts of situations. But that's the specific condition of the industry in Poland, where the entire industry is something like 15,000 people. So it's way smaller, obviously, than the US. And there isn't as much space for this sort of interdepartment rivalry or honestly treating QAs as some weird subhumans in the basement. Sorry, like,
That.
although some people try. We're fighting that as well. We're all equal in the union, yeah?
For some of us, the basement is not an option, okay?
Is that a targeted attack?
The inside joke. One of the things that we've discussed in our community was what unions bring to people and workers, because even the thought of knowing about unions doesn't mean necessarily that you know everything, and there might be cases where people think they're okay without unions. Like I feel okay. Like there might be a lot of people that feel that they have okay compensation, everything seems okayish, all that stuff, and now they see the buzz around unions. So obviously the people that need unions will go to unions, but I think there's also a lot of people that would benefit from unions that don't necessarily know that they would benefit from unions. So what is your take on what unions give to regular people? Like why should I, the person without a union, seek out a union? If I feel okay, if everything seems to be okayish and I'm having a normal game dev life, right? What are the benefits of either joining a union or supporting a union?
So let me jump in with that, because I have a line. Union is insurance. You might have the perfect time of game dev right now. I doubt you do. I seriously doubt anybody is feeling safe and secure and happy in their game dev position right now. Anybody. But it is insurance. If things go to shit, and we can see how quickly they can go to shit, then you have this backup of reaching out to this community, to these official organizations, the people with the lawyers, the people with the, professional, legal, financial advice, who can speak on your behalf or strengthen your voice or assist you in whatever way you need. Like, nobody is safe in game dev right now. Companies who make excellent games get shattered. Seniors with years of experience get kicked to the curb. This is the time. Honestly, if we were doing this effort, I don't know, 5 years ago, we wouldn't have nearly as strong a position as we do right now. But right now, unions are the way. And there's like proof of that.
Yep. All it takes sometimes is just like, one change of like one CEO to move, or even your manager to change.
Acquisition.
Yep, acquisition, just one move, and your like whatever comfort you might have eked out can disappear right under you. So unions provide that way to actually really through a legal contract actually secure what you have right now if you like it, and add the potential for even adding on to that if there are areas that you feel might be lacking, but even if everything's great, just nail it down. Get it in contract, get it in writing.
Yeah, I agree with those points. I think that there's this like conversation a lot that happens with unions where people are like, well, I don't need a union, right? Like I'm safe, I'm good, I'm comfortable. Like this idea that you have to have a union only when things are really dire is like just not the case. It's usually when people do organize unions, because people are pushed to action when they are feeling reacted to the way they are being treated. But if you unionize now, even when things are good, to Heather's point and Paula's point, you lock in your insurance and you lock in your ability to say, hey, actually, I get to have input over this. There's a level of community that you build in your unions that you wouldn't otherwise see in a non-union job. So I can tell you right now, I think QA at ZeniMax, we have the strongest community we've ever had. At any moment in time, a person who may normally have just been siloed off and forgotten about could come to anybody and say, hey, I'm experiencing a unique issue, or maybe a not so unique issue. and it'll immediately get raised to other people who are, maybe some volunteers of our union that have volunteered to be on committees to like uplift those voices and to solve the problem. Otherwise, those people wouldn't have a platform to even raise their issues. Some tangible things that you can talk about in terms of process that I don't know if it applies the same for Poland, but I know in the United States we have a grievance and arbitration procedure. I imagine you have something similar. So let's say you have a union. Let's say you have a contract for your union or a collective bargaining agreement, and someone says, there's something that is happening to me where I'm being treated unfairly, or I feel as though something is not right with what has happened to me or to a coworker or whatever the case may be. You can take that, like Paula said, you can take that and you can raise it to a shop steward or a union body that you've elected into your union body, or there are people who have volunteered into your union body to do this, and it's workers, right? It's you and your coworkers, by the way. It's not people, like a bunch of weirdos. It's not like weirdos you don't know. It's weirdos you do know. So you take it to your coworkers and you say, hey, this thing just happened to me, and I'm pretty sure it violates the collective bargaining agreement. And there's actually like an actionable process that can happen afterwards, where instead of a manager saying, thank you for bringing that to our attention, it actually gets raised up as far as it needs to go until it's settled. And that doesn't always mean that it necessarily rules in the favor of a worker. I mean, there are obviously human beings are human beings. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people, they get in their head. I'm totally this person. We're like, no, I know I'm right. But it's a pretty fair process. It's a process where it takes the facts of what the company has, and it takes the facts of what the workers have in terms of like evidence, and then it takes the collective bargaining agreement, and it says, okay, there's like a third party who will look at this and say, okay, according to this collective bargaining agreement, the worker is right or the company is right, and then they'll give an equal. How do I explain it? Sort of like they make you whole. They make you whole in a fair way, right? It's not like, okay, well, let's say somebody was suspended for 2 weeks, and they said, hey, that's unfair treatment. Like, I didn't do anything wrong, in my opinion. Like, suspended 2 weeks without pay is crazy. Like, maybe the arbiter who would look, this third party, this neutral party who would look at the ruling, would say, okay, you now get your 2 weeks of payback and you're reinstated into your job. So it's like it's a fair compensation, I guess. I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of cases we have, it's about pay, and we kind of have this several step process where we like escalate at every step. And the first step is like, okay, here's what you should say in an email to convince this party to pay you what you're owed. And if that doesn't work, we're gonna send a scary email on your behalf saying, hello, this person reached out to us, you're not paying her money, this is the contract, we've analyzed it, deal with it. A lot of the industry in Poland works on so-called casual contracts that are basically there for the purposes of tax dodging and to strip workers of their rights. If you have a proper employment contract under Polish law, you pay more in taxes, like more of your salary goes into taxes, but you have very robust protections. Now, if you have a casual contract, a mandate contract or something like that, then you pay fewer taxes, but also don't have pretty much any protections. Yeah. And we help out with that, because even on those contracts, we can reach out, we can give advice, we can threaten sometimes, because it's illegal to have this sort of casual contract if the work has the signs of employment contract. There are criteria, right? That if you meet them, you should be on an employment contract. And there are, bodies that do inspections, fines, There has been a studio that's been fined several million PLN for violations. So we also have this kind of knowledge, but also because we're intercompany, which is a unique situation in terms of like US unions. We have a lot of people from different walks of life, different companies, indies, AAA, AA, no quadruple A so far, but it will happen.
Give it some time.
Yeah, and they can give you advice. We actually had some seminars and lectures from our members for our members. We have a job board, we have mock interviews, we have CV reviews, anything we can do to help our people. Like, obviously, we're very happy to help all the people, everybody in the industry. But by being in the union and having access to our Discord and our internal channels, you can just very quickly get all sorts of advice.
And that's for me the biggest allure of unions, the education aspect. Because even on the other side, being the manager, the amount of conversation I had to have with people to educate them how they should talk to me so we can have a proper conversation about their salary. So it's like I'm kind of puppeteering them of being like, okay, this is what you need to say to me so I can they say back to you so we can have a proper conversation so you know how to present what you give to the company, what are the things what are the pros and cons of giving you this amount of money, what are your needs, all that stuff, and having the conversation. So having a whole body of people giving that education, especially that I think it's a problem everywhere where the education system leaves us vulnerable, not providing us enough information how the real world works. And like Paula mentioned, like those the most popular contracts that are those casual contracts are business to business, when you basically as a person create a company and then it's not longer worker company, but it's company to company.
One person company, right?
Yeah, one person company, yeah. And obviously companies abused it because they had lawyers that could sway their way. So if you didn't have a contract, you basically, in order to circumvent that and try to swing back, you have to put as that one mere company in contract that those vacation days and everything. So you have to basically manually bring it back. And people didn't know that. The biggest way was we can give you more money because you don't have to pay taxes. But obviously, again, this is not being said in educational system, so leaves people vulnerable. And then again, comes back to me where I have to have those conversations time and time again, which is even super dangerous as a manager. If you don't pick up on a person that they are unhappy in their current place, and because they don't know how to speak about it, they won't speak to you. There can be a headhunter that comes to them and be like, "Hey, do you want to work for us?" And you lose them because they were never educated how to speak for themselves. And you just, as a manager, you're at a loss. So for me as a manager, having a body, having some sort of group that basically goes around and educate people how to fight for their rights and give them courage to speak openly on their salaries and needs is super awesome. So that's my biggest allure when it comes to pros of unions.
But that's important what you said, that people don't speak when they're unhappy. And it can be either because they don't know how to, or because they're scared to rock the boat, especially in this economy. But if as a union, we hear from, 15 people at this company that they're all unhappy with their salaries and they think their lead is, not being very nice and screaming at them and whatever, then we can go to this company, listen, a bunch of people have come to us and we're not going to give you their names because we keep things anonymous, but they have come to us and they told us this, and this, and this. What are you going to do to resolve these issues? And we enter into a negotiation on behalf of that group, which then benefits everybody in that group, even if half of them are not in the union.
Yeah.
If I can, real quick before we move along, something as a manager or supervisor that I think is to be considered, at least as a union person who talks to all kinds of people about this topic. I've talked to CEOs, CTOs, COs, I've talked to managers, supervisors, whatever. Something to consider about, people unionizing is one, workers' rights are human right. If they want to unionize, let them unionize. But another thing is, rising waters lift all boats, and unions, they create, they have a tendency to raise wages. They have a tendency to enforce better policies. They have a tendency to, make it so that anything that they're giving the workers that are technically working underneath a manager or supervisor, they have to extend those things also to management above. So that's something to think about too. Is it's a kind of a mutually, it's a symbiotic relationship, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, our reps basically put it that, like, I mean, if you're going to pay the base workers like a certain amount of money, no one's going to want to take a management position if it pays less than what the entry level position is. No one's going to want to do that.
You paint a very pretty picture. So obviously, when we had a discussion in our community, that also comes, for example, from my side. Like, I know very little about unions, but which, probably as a Polish person should be saying with the history of unions in Poland, but that's just the reality of just knowing the general notion of unions, but not knowing enough to make informed decisions. Like, for example, you've mentioned bargaining unions, right? Like, for me, it screams losing control over your individual salary and losing the freedom. So probably when you're in America, when everything is about freedom, then it even screams even more harshly, what, I will now surrender my freedom, so some people will now decide what is my salary. So there's a lot of fears, I feel, coming from workers that are based in not knowing stuff. So from your point of view, what are the risks of unions? Like, what are the drawbacks? What are the things that people should know about so they can make a more informed decision? I heard all the pros, but what are the drawbacks? What if I want to join a union and become part of union? What I have to think about when joining one?
Okay. I'm sorry, but the idea of, through a union losing control of your salary and somebody decided your salary, well, that's what happens now. Like, there's a guy and there's a budget from finance, and you can make all sorts of perfect arguments possible, and they're gonna still say, like, no.
Yeah.
Go on, Heather.
I mean, I was going to say that, I think that's a common thing for people to sort of, this being, if anything, besides not knowing enough, that fear that kind of grips you of, like, because this industry is one that, like, a lot of us, when we get into this, we don't get into it because it's like, oh, I just was browsing, Indeed.com, and I saw a listing and I applied to it, and oh shoot, I'm in a game company. Like, we wanted to be here. This is a job that we really wanted, and, like, we're so afraid of losing losing what we have, and also feeling bad in where we work. And so, I mean, I've you talk to people and you hear that the same thing of, like, well, I feel like I want to be able to speak for myself. What this is, though, is it's feeding off of a long, at least many times it's feeding off of a, like, long, whispered, rumor or falsity, like a lie, essentially. Yeah, the myth, that's it.
Yes.
Of unions are third parties, right? That you won't know any of these people, right? That it's just some group that comes in and they swoop in and they take care of everything for you, and
We
you're just
hear
sitting
that
back, like,
so much from CEOs. Is these outsiders coming in?
and meanwhile, when you actually get into it, you realize, like, I mean, every single person, when we talked with the Communications Workers of America, who is that's who we've unionized through. I know that sounds like, who are they? Who's the Communications Workers of America? I'm like, all I would say is that they helped give us the ability to make a union, which is ourselves. Like, when we're at the bargaining table, the people who get to decide on what our salary level is, what we want to be paid, is us, because of the final say comes down to us, the workers, right? Somebody could give me an idea of, like, hey, maybe you should ask for this, but I and my coworkers get the final say, and that's a little too low even, or, like, oh, that sounds great. We get the final say. It's just to let you know that, like, it's ultimately, it is you and your coworkers that make this union. And so that idea of losing freedom, if anything, you actually gain
Gain
some
it,
more
yeah.
control when joining a union.
To continue from that kind of, ain't nobody got time for that, to be some sinister force trying to control you and your salaries and whatever. The union, it's all volunteers. It's all people who, if they're being paid for any of this, are being paid like minimal amounts, and there's very few of them. Or if they're at a higher level in the union, they're having a ton of work to do for whatever money they get. My union is part of the Workers Initiative, which is one of the few like Poland-wide unions that covers different industries. That's their logo, the angry cat, and this is our Gamedev Workers Union. And their policy is that nobody can be a full-time union organizer. It all has to be done in sort of sync with your work, so you always have contact with your fellow employees, and you always know what's going on with them. So there is like no shadow council or anything like that. Another fee people have, I feel, is what if my boss finds out I'm in a union? Will I get fired, or will I not get raises, be prejudiced against, whatever? And first of all, the membership is completely anonymous. Unless you reveal yourself, nobody will do that for you. This is like the cardinal sin, to out a union member without their consent. That's one thing. And second of all, the more people are in the movement and the more standards union becomes, the less likely that is. Like, my ultimate goal is to make union membership and union presence in Polish gaming companies, and worldwide, but that's kind of out of my remit, but in Poland, a fact of life that you just have to deal with as an employer. Just as you have to give people holidays, just as you have to give people sick leave, just as you have a limit on how many hours they can work per week, you also deal with a union. And it's just a normal part of running a business. So in that scenario, nobody can be penalized for being in the union because everybody is in the union.
Great points. I think you guys touched on a lot of really important facts about some of the fears, right? And some of like the common misconceptions about how unionization applies to jobs. There are negatives. Don't get me wrong, nothing's perfect. Unions are not a perfect tool. It's made up of people. So as perfect as people are, I'm sure you can imagine how perfect unions are. It's a democratic process. In the case of CWA, it's democratic on every single level. I don't know if you've ever voted on anything before and lost, but it's not a great feeling. At the same time, what you're talking about is engaging in a democratic process with a ton of coworkers who are interested in having your back and interested in supporting your needs and your interests. And the way that you ensure that you are not losing out and you are gaining as much as you can from your union body is to be involved. It's to talk to the people who are volunteering their time to help you. It's to be engaged in your committees. I mean, really, it's as simple as having a conversation just like this and saying, hey, I'm really worried about my salary. I'm worried about the fact that, I'm not making bonuses as good as I was 3 years ago. Okay, heard. I hear you. Like, any money that you're making or any win you're gaining for yourself is a win for me too as a worker. So like, obviously I'm going to have your best interest at heart as much because it's my interest. It's my best interest. But the negatives, yeah, it's true. There are negatives. There are times where you're like, you know what? I fought really, really, really hard for, our union. I fought really, really, really hard to like change a policy with the company, and the company just refused to meet us the way that we needed to be met on this policy. And that's it's a crappy feeling. It's a crappy feeling to lose. You're not going to win every single thing that you want. You're just not. But it doesn't mean that stays off the table permanently. By having a union, you have the ability to continuously try to fight for change in those policies, as opposed to like things just happening to you you get input on those things, and you have the ability to fight over those things. So, unions are why we have child labor laws. Unions are why we have weekends. Unions are why we have sick leave. Unions are why we have paid time off and vacation and parental leave, and like all of the things that you feel are normal about your work life, you can thank organized labor for doing that. And I'm of the mind that, all those interesting challenges, those concerns about, well, I'm a creative. What if I lose my creative freedom? Well, I'm an engineer and I feel like really solidified in my position. I'm not worried about things like layoffs. That's great. Please take that experience and take that attitude and bring it to your coworkers and start brainstorming interesting solutions and interesting ideas to bring into your collective bargaining agreements, because that is how you will set the new standard for the future of video games. It's not going to be by being solo and deciding, you know what, I'm good, even if 90% of the people I work with aren't good. Like, being a part of that community and building that, I think, is how we're really going to be able to tackle those types of concerns. I certainly, there's no perfect answer, I think, in terms of solutions always, right? That's another drawback. Sometimes you come up with a solution and you're like, okay, this is great. Let's put it into our collective bargaining agreement. And like, maybe it just doesn't pan out the way you were really hoping it would. Maybe your collective bargaining agreement, in our case, we have collective bargaining agreements. There are people who like organize without contracts, which is like a whole other beast that I'm not really familiar with, but the concept is generally the same. If you don't like something, you can change it later. Like you have the ability to do that and to address it and to fix it later. But it does mean living with that for, a set amount of time, which usually doesn't exceed like 3 or 4 years. And frankly, that's as long as most people are staying in jobs right now, tops, given the whole layoffs thing. So I would like to stay at ZeniMax until I die. I don't want to keep hopping jobs. But anyways, that was really long-winded. But yeah, I mean, there are drawbacks for sure. It's not perfect. It requires work. It's democratic. So, and you are still trying to change things within an entity that doesn't want you to change things. So it's hard, But...
How do we consolidate the fact that the game industry is full of very socially awkward people, probably autistic, and also you say that as a democratic process we have to talk to each other? That's
I mean, we're making it work. We're doing it.
Yeah,
but jokes. Please go ahead, Heather.
I was going to say that. I mean, if anything, you can if you need to, you can of course organize yourselves in ways that like most benefits like the people that you work with. Like if there's a lot of people who are like, I'm very socially awkward and I would prefer to communicate with you via text only or something, like people you can arrange that or something, as long as you are able to follow through with things, whatever works best to just get things going. But like, I mean, if anything, then if most of you, if you know that a lot of your coworkers are just like you in that way, or share that sort of like social awkwardness, right? If you have other autistic coworkers, if anything, it's great to know that like, oh my God, I'm not alone, and like you have this issue too. Oh my God, you hate it when we have to test this thing, like that they for example for QA, like we know of like there's an issue with in Activision, some testers who are not allowed to listen to music when they're testing, like even when they're not actively testing the game, no music, nothing. And like that's a bother for a lot of people. They're like, I can't fucking deal with this, like I can't deal with not being able to drown out
have an
background
outlet,
chatter.
yeah.
Exactly. So being able to be like, bonding on these issues of like, oh my God, you're same way. Like, it honestly, if anything, it might be not that this will like cure all social awkwardness, but like, hey, it's actually a great way to begin to like maybe take steps towards getting a little bit less socially awkward, that when you're making these connections, however it best fits you, like you'll start to realize like, hey, I now have something I can talk to you about. I have a topic that I know I can go to and be like, hey, so what are we doing? Like, hey, are we going to do a game night for, like among union members or something? Hey, how's bargaining going? stuff like that like it gives you actually I always like to say that I imagine it as it's like unlocking a secret dialogue tree in when you're talking to somebody, right? Like normal options, and then finally there's like, you know, union. Right?
That's great.
You know, in my sense, because we're multiple companies, I talk to people from a lot of different companies that I wouldn't have talked to otherwise. We compare notes, we compare conditions. About what you say, Autumn, about like changing jobs and layoffs and whatever. How cool will it be in Poland when you leave your job and you jump to another unionized studio? Like you already know people there, because you're in the union. You know what the rules are and what you can expect. Like fantastic. And yeah, with the people from different studios, it's like networking, but without LinkedIn or conference bullshit. Because we're on a Discord together, we talk about stuff, we post memes, we post pets, we have serious discussions, we talk about games. It's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not here right now making these connections because of my incredible professional prowess. Like, I'm
Yeah,
here because
like the three of us, like
uh,
we're gonna stay in touch. We're gonna compare notes, strategies.
I would say if you can work on teams and individually to create multi-million-dollar video games, you can build a union.
Yeah.
Something that can be scary for people are the union dues. Can you tell us if it's a very scary sum or how does it look like?
Autumn, would you like to go?
I would love to. So union dues are going to vary a little bit from, you know, some unions, they don't do dues. Some unions, they do dues. They do dues. Some unions have dues, some don't. In our case, in the CWA organizing body, union dues are 1.3% of gross pay. That's pre-tax. So it's about 2.25 hours of work per pay period. And I think that people think about dues and they're like, ooh, scary. Dues is not a bad word. Dues is actually a good thing. Dues are how we afford resources that assist workers in being able to fight for the things that they need. So in the case of CWA, we utilize dues to go towards strike funds. So if workers need to go on strike, because we have that strike fund, those workers can actually tap into that fund so that they can receive stipends so they're not, you know, struggling to survive when they're doing things like fighting for their rights. Dues also pay for just keeping the structure of a union body running. So there are shops or locals that are spread throughout the nation. And in the case of America, I'm not super sure how it works for Poland, but in the case of America, you know, there are shops or locals that it costs money sometimes to run those things, right? So you have a dedicated body of human beings that at the drop of a hat are ready to assist you in a moment. I can tell you that in the case of our union, and I know this is true for Heather as well, from the time that we started organizing with the Communication Workers of America, CWA, from the time that we started organizing with them, which was, I want to say 2 years ago now, right? We're about a year and a half into, we're a year into bargaining, probably a year into organizing. So about 2 years or so working with CWA, I haven't paid a penny in dues. I don't pay any dues until my contract is ratified, until we have a collective bargaining agreement that all of our workers sign and vote and say, yes, I want this. And by the way, we're going to be negotiating for payment that covers the dues, the cost of dues. So it's not like it's coming out of the money that you make right now. As somebody working in QA for a AAA game studio, I couldn't afford it. So I'm not gonna sign myself up to pay for something that I couldn't cover. But the things that it does cover, it's an organization. It's like any other organization, and it's run by you, right? I could sign up right now. Actually, yeah, I could. I could sign up right now. I haven't even started paying dues yet. I could sign up right now to go and run as an officer in my local shop to help workers, and dues pay for that. So it's me helping more workers do more worker things and fight for their rights. Really, is that in terms of examples what that would look like.
Meanwhile, in Poland, our dues are a flat amount for everybody, which is 15 PLN, which is about $4.
Yeah.
It's a coffee, okay? It's a coffee per month, and it's really not a lot. like all of these, mimetic union busting ads of, oh, you pay dues, you could instead buy a game console. No, you can't. You can't
Question,
buy
sorry. Is it monthly or yearly?
monthly.
Okay, good.
You need to. Oh, go ahead.
You can't buy a console for union dues. It's just really not enough. Yeah, all of this goes towards union infrastructure, towards Workers Initiative main office in Poznan, towards legal expertise, towards like research and other things. Like recently, me and a colleague went to a conference in Krakow, Digital Dragons, and presented the results on the survey we ran about overtime and overtime pay and everything. That raised the visibility of the union and also, scattered some information about the conditions in the market. And it's work, okay? When we go to conferences or things like that, which is constantly on, we're talking to people, we're talking to lawyers, we're talking to journalists, we're talking to prospective members. We got declarations signed at that conference. That was great. So, it's things like that. The unions are not, the dues are not that large, and they go towards making us run, making us tick.
And if you think about the things that you probably pay subscription fees for nowadays, like it's like if you can pay, I'm not sure what the Polish equivalent would be, but like if you're paying like $16 or something for Netflix a month or something.
Less than half a Netflix.
Yeah, right.
Sounds like
Just
a
saying.
marketing slogan.
Yeah, less than at the union dues, less than half a Netflix. God.
Yeah. So we talked about your unions. We talked about pros and cons, which is a tip of an iceberg. So do you have any resources where people can in-depth their knowledge on unions if they want to, start a union, join a union, get more knowledge about unions? Where should they go?
Great question. The internet. You could always reach out to folks, I think, like us, anybody who's here. If you can find a way to communicate with us, I think we would always be happy to talk about it. We've always got places to send folks for information, but really go online and look up, Game Union, look up Gamedev Union, or start shopping, do some window shopping for unions that you feel their strategy or how they tackle issues most closely resonates with what the problems are that your coworkers are facing, you and your coworkers are facing. And if you go, they have websites. You can go on the website and it'll be like, contact us, because they want you to come. They want you to come say hi. They want you to talk about what's going on. So you just go online, go to a little contact us, tell them what's going on, where you are, where you live, what the deal is. Somebody will reach out to you, I assure you.
If you're worried about like, oh my god, again, like anonymity is definitely a thing they will respect. If you're like, listen, current keep it on the down low, they know and understand that, and they will do their best to make sure that this does not get leaking out to your employer. If you're worried about that,
and for you Polish guys, but also not only, like, we have our website in English. It's gamedevunion.pl, gamedevunion.pl. We have an email there, contact@gamedevunion.pl. We have a Facebook and we have a LinkedIn because we're old and we can't into socials. We kind of need a social media person, okay? So, if anybody's listening, anybody wants to help, like, this is your time to shine. This is your chance. But yeah, you can contact us. You can tell us what your problem is, what you're worried about, and we will give you sage advice. Like, asterisk on the sage, but we will do our best.
So does ZeniMax has like an official union page that people can go to?
We have a Twitter, yeah. And you could certainly message the Twitter. That's totally fine. I check it. That's me and a couple of other folks, I think, on our bargaining committee and our mobilizing committees. And yeah, full anonymity. No one's going to out you. We went through this process. We know how important confidentiality is. And the last thing we would want to do is say, hey, so-and-so at Embracer Group is organizing. It's terrible. We'd never do that.
And Heather, for you?
I mean, I know we do have a Twitter. It's been sort of inactive lately, but certainly, if you want to message that, I mean, we can. It would be good for us to revive it and begin that presence. But I mean, I'm on Discord. I'm in the underground QA union. You can at Xandraws. You can message me there, and reach out. I'll gladly, if you just want someone to point the way, or like trying to, you don't have to get into like full, details or something, but if you're like trying to figure out, is this a thing a union can help with? I can do my best to like listen to what's going on if you want, give you some, well, I say give advice, but really do my best. I mean, understand, I want to help as much as possible because workers help workers, right? Like that, it's, we're trying to make sure that this industry is one that people can have a long-term sustainable career in. And I am so interested in, no matter what studio you come from, I want you to be able to feel that when you have this job, it is not teetering on the brink of, collapsing beneath you and sending you into like the gutters,
Heather, what's your Twitter handle?
It's I don't use Twitter as much lately, but if you still want to reach me there, it's
For
the
the Game
same.
Workers.
Oh, gosh, I believe it is GWA Albany. That's a good.
Yeah, I just realized I should have plugged that in. Ours is ZeniMax Workers United. So if you look up ZeniMax Workers United, you'll find it.
You can tell that.
And my
Go ahead.
Discord is Autumn Sauce, so my first name and then sauce like pizza sauce, and then it's a little period punctuation mark at the end.
Got it. Okay. So we are at GWA Albany, all one word. That is our Twitter handle. So, and maybe we'll try to even bring that to another platform too, if in case Twitter itself finally does bite the dust. Who knows? But
Risky platform these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them are, unfortunately.
True.
Yeah.
So basically at the end, usually we love to do the bug of the cast, so present a funny bug. And I think we have two. So we have from Heather and Autumn. So would you share your bugs?
So my bug that I'd like to share, it's not written by me actually. It was written by a tester who has moved from QA now to, I believe he went to technical art. But when he was working on, it was Diablo 2 Resurrected. If you're familiar with the game, Act 3 takes place in this sort of jungly environment called Kurast, and there's a marketplace there that has all these things laid out on tarps, on cloth, and one of the stalls is selling, you can see it, lobsters. There's lobsters for sale there. Now, he grew up, I believe, in the Caribbean. He grew up in warmer water areas and knows that lobsters in certain environments look different. If you're in the Caribbean, if you're in like Pacific, the lobsters have a certain look to them. It's kind of spiny lobsters. The antennae look different. There's a visual difference. The lobsters on sale at Curtis Market, however, were they look a lot more like they came from like the northern Atlantic, like off the coast of Maine. And he specifically wrote a very detailed bug about exactly what the lobsters in Kurast Market are not the correct type of lobsters for the environment, and included helpful diagrams. He wrote up how this would degrade player trust in the brand because they're the wrong type of lobster.
This is my GWA dissertation on lobsters.
I mean, hey, that's immersion for you.
I mean,
That's like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love people like that. That's like peak QA.
Yeah, I agree. So lobster adjacent, actually, when you take a little trip down to the town of Red Fall, Massachusetts, on Project Redfall, there was, I forget who it was. I don't actually remember who posted up this ticket, but there was an issue where for the NPCs, all of their pants actually had, instead of like pants texture, it was a skin texture. So all the NPCs for their pants would look like, there's like skin over the pants. So on the title of the bug, the title was Meat Pants. And in the bug, it showed like all of these images of these NPCs that just had like what looks like fleshy meat pants. So yeah, that was fixed pretty quickly. But the meat pants, I think about the meat pants a lot.
Good memory.
Imagine being a developer looking, or a producer looking, bugs reported yesterday or today morning, and the first that shows up is meat pants.
Meat pants.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll definitely have it looked at very instantly. Like it's
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for those bugs. So for us is all for today. Thank you so much, Adam, Heather, and Paula for joining on the podcast today. It was really awesome. Thank you, obviously, the audience for listening and joining us. We wouldn't be able to do this podcast without you. If you have any suggestions for future topics or bugs of the day, we'd love to hear them. If you're a QA professional and would like to be on the podcast, we would love to have you. In either case, please contact us undergroundgameqaconf@gmail.com or reach out on Twitter @undergroundqa. Also, our community, Underground Game QA, is searchable in Discord, so you can search for us. So we would love to hear from you and collaborate together. And the last thing before we end, do you guys have anything to plug or share or throw people at?
I already plugged the union website, so refer to that.
Yeah.
Join this movement. Organizing.
Unionizing. We're plugging unionizing.
Don't be afraid. It's good.
There's plenty of resources. This has been going on for like over a century, if not longer. And there's lots of lessons have been learned.
Yeah, join a union. Thank you so much.
Join a union. That's the plug.
Keep playing, keep testing, and keep washing your hands.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.